Hey everybody, it's Jenny Wright, and I want to welcome you to this episode of List Build and Lead. This is episode 17, and it is a really special episode, and I've been hinting to you guys about this for 2 weeks now because we have a very special guest. It's Haley Lynn Gray, a dear friend of mine, and also somebody that I've worked with previously in doing some list building and other things. So Haley is the founder of Leadership Girl and also the creator of Women's Entrepreneur Network, which is a massive Facebook group of over 63,000 women. And that's a complete another story in itself. And maybe we should do a total episode just about how you grew that group, because it's like nuts. But Haley has this really cool vision, and it's that women can completely and utterly harness their power and skills and be effective leaders, right? So her whole group is around that. And she creates all these really cool things around that particular idea. And that's why actually I'm having Haley on today, because we're going to be talking about all sorts of things around organic and paid traffic. So Haley, thanks so much for coming on. You're the first guest.
I'm so excited to be here. This is truly an honor.
That's
really
awesome. Haley and I actually worked together. We did a summit back in March 2018, which meant we started working together in 2017. And that was a lot of fun. That was the Alchemy of Successful Marketing, if I remember correctly. And so that was a summit that you launched in March 2018. And then you and I also bonded over our love of animals and horses and, health stuff. And it's funny, every time you and I have a conversation, we end up having these like elongated chats that are like 45 minutes of chit chat and then 15 minutes of like stuff, but it's fun. So we're gonna dive right in here. We're gonna talk about organic traffic versus paid traffic. You guys all know I'm an organic list builder. You guys all know that's what I love. But I have gone to the dark side. I have seen the light of actually looking at doing some paid ads and some paid traffic. So today, because I'm not an expert in paid traffic, I bring in the expert for you guys. Okay, so I'm gonna ask the questions that I think you would want to know about paid traffic versus organic traffic, and we're going to dive in. So, sound good, Haley?
That sounds amazing.
Awesome. Okay. So you all know that I work on the organic side. And when you and I did our summit together, we did a lot of organic traffic as well. But I want to ask you, from your expert point of view, what are the best types of list builds that would benefit from having paid traffic?
So the best kinds of list builds that benefit from paid traffic are when you have somebody who's at least just a little bit established and has at least something of a list going on and a track record. One of the things that I definitely do not recommend doing, because I did this myself and it was painfully expensive and it didn't work, is to just jump right in and start immediately doing paid ads to try to get people onto a freebie that you think and imagine that they want. So the things that do work, in my experience, are actually quite the opposite. You have a little bit of an online following, and it doesn't have to be huge. It can be a couple hundred people. And then you have a really super amazing, super specific opt-in or offering that you're giving people. And when you are super specific about it, that really, really helps. And I'm not talking about I'm helping everybody, who has left their corporate job, who's over the age of 50, because that is just a really, really broad pool. It's the people that are very specific. Like, there are certain people who do, say, list builds or summits on a very narrow topic, so organic list builds, or who talk about funnel building, or who talk about a very specific narrow niche. And I see Jenny nodding her head, because those are the things that work especially well in summits. So if they work very well with organic, they're probably going to work just as well, if not better, with paid traffic. And if they're not going to work with organic traffic, they're not going to work with paid traffic particularly well, or the cost per conversion is going to be super high and the return on investment is going to be much lower. So it's very analogous. So if it's going to work with organic traffic, it may very well work with paid traffic as well. But you have to have a bit of something to go on, and some relationships, and people already starting to kind of recognize you and know who you are, which is kind of a chicken and egg problem, really.
Isn't it though? Because that's the problem, right? Like, how do I grow my list, and how do I get people following me on my Facebook page or following me on Instagram? And some people think that, you know what, if they start right off the bat with Facebook ads, that's going to get them the audience. But because you don't have an audience as of yet, this is why I always recommend that if you have absolutely zero following, that you can start growing that following simply by being consistent in posting, as well as creating things that are of value, like really easy peasy lead magnets, videos, things of that nature that, I mean, you can do them for a couple of months, and then all of a sudden it's like you hit a tipping point and people start paying attention, right? So these are great things to do.
Well, and I recommend like guest podcasting. Being a guest on other people's podcasts is tremendous. Mm-hmm. And then do your part to promote it as well. Even though it's a little part, they're not going to mind that because you are promoting and you're doing your part. But finding a way to leverage another person's platform is also a huge way to get out there and start building your own. And then engaging with people. I mean, posting is one thing, but the other thing that you cannot buy is actually building relationships with people and commenting on other people's posts and liking and being a community resource. Mm-hmm. I don't approach people with that idea of, okay, I'm trying to sell you whatever package I'm into today. I'm really focusing on how can I be of service? And when I come from that aspect, it works beautifully. When I just did posting everywhere and the drop and post and run thing, it was brutal.
Yeah, absolutely.
It did not work. It was brutal.
And that's something I know that you work hard on in your very large group to keep people from doing. So
absolutely.
And there's, like I said, an entire episode about Women's Entrepreneur Network that we could talk about. So the next thing I want to ask you is, when is paid traffic a good ROI, return on investment for your list build?
And that's actually a really good question. So I think you have to actually back up and say, okay, so what am I selling?
Yes.
And what are my profit margins and what are my numbers? And a lot of people are like, oh, I just want to do it for visibility. And the MBA in me cringes. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't know what your profit margin is, if you don't know how much you can afford to spend to acquire a client,
right?
You don't know what you're selling.
And let's talk about acquiring a client for a second. Let's talk about that spend, because honestly, that may be something that people don't completely understand. So here's an example. Right. If you're doing a summit and you end up getting 2,000 people to sign up for your summit, but you spent $2,000 to build that summit. Okay, Let's just even numbers, right? So your cost of acquiring leads is
$1 per lead.
$1 per lead, which is great. It's actually a really good one, because if you're looking at, that's for organic traffic, and if you're looking at paid traffic, that would be considered really, really good, right? Mm-hmm. Right? So
absolutely.
When we look at that, we're like, okay, how much did you spend on creating the course, or how much did you spend on creating the product? What's the profit? So if it cost you, $1,000 to create, and you're selling it for whatever amount, like $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, and it's on repeat because the work has already been done, then you've got a really good profit margin. And doing Facebook ads at whatever cost and whatever return might make sense, right? There's like a...
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and I'm not a math person, so I might be butchering the crap out of this, but I kind of get it.
Right.
So go on, sorry.
But so I'll give you an example. So sure. Say you have a health club and you're able to estimate that somebody will come and they'll join your health club and they'll be a member for 2 years. The total spend that they may have with your club on average in that 2 years is say $500. Well, then you take out all of your expenses, all of your employees, all of your taxes, your salaries, insurance, all of your expenses that go into running the business. Those all count, right? Mm-hmm. Because you have to have those things in order to have those clients.
It's a little different though for online, because we don't always have the same expenses.
We don't always have exactly the same expenses, but we've got VAs, we've got Entreport, we've got, our email systems, we've got very real expenses with running our businesses.
How would you figure that out? Let's just say that your monthly expenses for your business, let's just say, are $300. Okay, right. That's really light, by the way, but...
Yeah, Well, and for most people, it's going to be more like $700 or $800.
Okay, so let's just say $700-800, and that's what your expenses are in your business per month. That's your overhead. How do you figure out then the ROI? So what would be the calculation in an example that fits for an online entrepreneur?
Okay, so what you would do is you would start to look at your longer term numbers for your business. So you say, I have $7,000 a month. I have $84,000 a year, or $8,400 a year in expenses. So if I bring a client in, and I'm going to bring in 40 clients, and they're each going to pay me $1,000, let's just say, and the clients for me are a one-time deal. So they're going to come in, they're going to spend $1,000, and they're going to go back out again. That means that your profit is, 40,000 minus that 8,400, right? So you're at roughly $31,600 right there. So that is your profit margin. So one of the things you have to be really careful of is, say your profit margin, your value per client isn't $1,000. Say it's $100. Suddenly you've put yourself into a hole because your business expenses are $8,400 a year, but your costs, the amount of money that you're making is only $4,000 a year. So you're in the hole.
Yeah. And
no amount of brand recognition is going to fix that.
Right.
So you either need to lower your expenses or you need to increase your profits. So it could be that, well, we understand that we're going to lose business the first 3 years, or lose money the first 3 years of our business. So we're going to say, okay, so the first year we're going to lose $3,000. The second year we're going to lose $2,000. The third year we're going to lose $1,000. And then after that, we're going to be profitable. But you have to be aware of how much you're spending, especially on ads, because you can just totally tank your business by paying too much for ads. I mean, I did this in my previous business, not to tank the business that way, but I spent $17,000 on ads with YP.com and I got one client.
Wow, that's crazy.
And we wouldn't have known if we hadn't been measuring and monitoring and seeing what we were actually getting from that.
Gotcha.
So it's important to know your numbers.
Absolutely.
Really, really grok your numbers. Like, can I even make a profit with this? So if I'm selling a $13 product, your cost per client needs to be really low to acquire a client.
Yep, exactly. So if you're getting something like 84 cents a lead or something, or $1 per conversion, then that would make sense. You would do that all day long. But
right, exactly. But, and if you're doing, something like, you're doing all these different things with your ads, and you're upselling after doing the first round of acquisition. So say they buy a $13 product, and then they're going to buy a $50 product, and then they're going to buy a $500 product. So you can start to figure out, oh, well, in 2 years, they've actually spent $5,000 on average with me. That really changes it. So you would probably be willing to throw away that first $13 just to acquire a client.
Oh, hell yeah. Absolutely.
So you've got to understand where your numbers are so that you know if you can even afford to do paid advertising.
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of people don't do that. So let's transition and talk about another aspect that completely beguiled me. And I know it's something that other people worry about too, is how to not overpay in the auction system with Facebook ads. Like, how do you not, without going into like super deep technical layman's terms, how do you avoid doing that?
So the first thing to know is your numbers, right?
Yeah.
You don't know if you're overpaying if you don't know what your numbers are.
Sure.
The second thing is that you really have to keep a close eye on your Facebook ads, especially in the first 3 or 4 days after they start running. And one of the things I want to really caution people on is they want to start their ads and then take them down, and then up and then down, and then up and then down. You really need to run your ads for a week or two before you like take them down and completely redo them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a super short window, you could be shooting yourself in the foot because you haven't given Facebook the opportunity to allow the artificial intelligence that Facebook uses for ads to normalize to lower your costs. And for most people, when I do ads, you know, whether it's a plumber or an attorney or an online business coach, over time, their ads tend to drop in cost if we have written the ad well. Now, one of the things that you have to watch out for is the frequency, i.e., are you showing people the ad too much that they just kind of burn out on it?
Right.
So there is some definite fatigue that happens with an ad, and you have to be aware of that. But how do you avoid overpaying? Pay close attention to your ads. Get on there every day and make sure that they're behaving at least in the first few days. If you're going to do them for longer, you know, monitor them every day for the first few days, and then do them a couple of times a week and make sure that they're still behaving, because sometimes things will go up and down and up and down, and you just kind of need to keep an eye on it. And Facebook ads, Google ads, doesn't really matter. You just have to keep a close eye on it. You cannot set ads and forget about them for the next 3 years.
No, that would be a total waste of your money.
And yet I have come into businesses where that has been the case.
Oh my God. Well, thank goodness that you're there to help, right?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it kind of breaks my heart, honestly, to come in and have to do that. I mean, I know there's a lot of really exceptional practitioners in this market, but there's a lot of people who will charge you $500 a month, and they basically set the ads and completely forget about them.
I think there's somebody like that in every niche that just does that to people, which sucks. Okay, so let's talk about targeting. So targeting, and this is my understanding of targeting. Targeting is when you create a Facebook ad and you say, I want you to show it to people who like or who are interested in this. And targeting, you can have huge target audiences and really small target audiences. What I want to know is, how specific do you need to get with your targeting to be optimized for your ads?
So typically you need to have at least some size of an audience.
Okay.
So, you know, having 1,000 people in your audience is going to be kind of tough unless you're doing a retargeting ad. But if you're showing ads to cold traffic, the reality is that they're not always on Facebook. They're not always on Instagram. You know, you're wanting to be seen just enough that people actually do something. So you need an audience of between 700,000 and 1 million people. If you have an audience that all of a sudden has like 20 million people in it, it's probably too large. You can start breaking it up. And I do recommend, you know, if you start seeing that larger audience size, that you start breaking it up by male, female, different, you know, age ranges, different parts of the country, different states, doing all those kinds of things. So that you do start getting those slightly smaller 500, 700,000 person in the audience range.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense, right? And that way you're not exhausting the ad when it's a much smaller audience, but at the same time, it's probably going to get, you know, they're going to get their eyeballs on it once or twice or maybe 3 times. And that makes sense. Okay.
And you'll be able to tell which ones are performing better too. If you can segment it down a little further, you can say, okay, is this one doing better or this one doing better?
Got it.
A/B testing is where things really get amazing with ads. You know, both your landing page, your copy, your messaging, your
all of it,
art, all of it has to be A/B tested. There is no one right combination. And I don't think that there's a single person out there on the face of this planet who can just automatically go, oh, here is the perfect combination, and put it up.
Yeah.
And if they tell you they can do it, they're lying through their teeth.
Oh God, yeah. Absolutely. So one of the things that I've been interested in and what I wanted to ask you about was retargeting.
Oh yeah.
Right. So what is retargeting? I have an understanding that retargeting is like, if people visit my website, through Google Analytics, I can somehow retarget them in my Facebook ads and show them other things that they might be interested in. Is that how it works? Like, I'm not 100% sure.
So you install a Facebook pixel on your landing page or your website. And if your landing pages in your website are in separate places. You can actually install your Facebook pixel in multiple places. You can set it up for events so it can track people through. If they do this, then this is an event. If they do that, then that is an event. You get some really, really technical, twitchy stuff that says, okay, they did these little things, so follow them here, right?
Right.
So what we do is we know that they visited your site, and then we show them a related ad or a related piece of information. Oh, you visited this page for this health club. Here, let us show you this article about health.
And we all see that so many times. How many times have you looked at an ad on your freaking phone and then 10 minutes later, you're literally being shown like something else? I mean, I can't even tell you how many times that's happened to me.
Right. And it does it for me for overstock.com all the time.
Yeah.
And Nordstrom is the other one that'll do it for me.
Lululemon gets me every time.
Oh, okay.
Every time. I get retargeted by them like crazy. But retargeting, will it reduce the cost of your ads?
It can.
Okay.
So the thing about retargeting is that you have to have enough ad spend to start with, that you're driving enough people to the website, or you're getting enough organic traffic onto the website.
Right.
That you're forming at least an audience of people, right? A few thousand people. If you don't have anybody already visiting your website, there's nobody to retarget to. Now, where retargeting gets kind of interesting is that you can actually do kind of some A/B testing with it, where you retarget directly the people who have already been to your website. But you can also do ads to people who look like the audience of people who have visited your website.
That's cool.
And you can also do ads to people who look exactly like the ones who have already bought from you. And you can use Facebook's artificial intelligence to decide, okay, how do I want to target these audiences? So they have a lot more analytics than they expose to us. But we can kind of guess and kind of piggyback on it at times to really make it much more powerful.
Okay, that makes sense, because that's really cool, because as you know, and as everybody who watches this will soon know, I'm actually running a challenge starting on December 9th called the Level Up List Build Challenge. And then afterwards, we are selling a digital course, right? Where like, it's not like the two are combined, but later on, I'm going to be selling a digital course. And it makes sense that it's possible to be able to retarget the people who checked out the challenge or signed up for the challenge and everything, and say, hey, you like this, you might like that.
Right, exactly.
Perfect. I totally
Or the people who landed on the page but didn't sign up.
Right.
You can target those people and say, hey, you didn't sign up. Is it, can we show you this again? Do you maybe want to sign up? Are you sure? Because a lot of times people are like, yeah, I'll do it later or whatever. And prompting them a few times and having it like appear in their consciousness a few times.
Sure.
And kind of giving them that surround sound experience.
Well, that's worked on me. I know it.
will generate much better results. Exactly.
Absolutely. Okay. So let's talk about when it makes sense to run paid ads for a list build. So an example, let's look at a summit. In a summit, we're relying on our experts to help us create organic traffic to our landing page for our summit and get people to sign up. And usually what that means is anywhere between an opt-in rate between 40 and 75%, which is, we would consider a warm traffic audience. Would it make sense to do Facebook ads to a summit?
Absolutely.
Okay. And what would you do? Like, what if your experts aren't really big experts that you could target their audiences? What if they're not big enough to be like noticed by Facebook enough so that when you go to do the targeting, you can't put their name in and it comes up?
Right. So you're really going after your own target audience for a list build.
Okay.
At the end of the day, the summit is to help you build your own list. Not that you're not here to help the experts as well, but your job is not to necessarily go build everybody else's and their cousin's list or target their stuff. So if they don't have a list, they may get a few people out of the list.
Yep.
And that's kind of the juju that happens with a summit.
Yep.
But ultimately, at the end of the day, you're the one paying for the summit, and you need bodies, and you're there to build your list. And it's a really phenomenal free opt-in, for most people. It's time constrained, it's high quality, you're offering a great resource. Who wouldn't really want a great online course?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So I've got two more questions and then we're going to wrap this up. I mean, this has been super. Here's a question that I've always thought of. And I mean, it's one of those questions you're going to get asked a million times, I'm sure, with what you do, but how do you budget for Facebook ads? Like, I'm running a challenge. How much money should I put towards Facebook ads? Or I'm running, I'm going to be launching a lead magnet. How much money should I put towards like Facebook ads to try and get some leads?
Right. So you're going to need to budget for two things. One is to have somebody manage the ads, whether it's Facebook ads or Google ads or whatever. And I don't necessarily advocate for only doing Facebook ads. I'm kind of one of those rare birds who will say, maybe we should be doing some display ads and checking and seeing if that's cheaper than Facebook ads.
Okay. What the heck is a display ad?
So a display ad is like when you're on a totally different website, like CNN, and you see this ad appear for something.
How do people even get those out there? I have no idea.
You can do that through Google. So there's ways to show up through Google AdWords and do certain things with that kind of stuff. And that's the kind of thing that we do through our business. So you can advertise on more than just Facebook. You can do it on Pinterest. You can do it on Bing. And believe it or not, Bing can be super cheap because a lot of people overlook it. And it is the default search engine for a lot of people. Depending on your browser, LinkedIn, it just depends, right?
Yeah.
So really
I'm even seeing Reddit. I'm even seeing ads on Reddit now.
Exactly. Right?
And Imgur and all those, it's happening. Okay. That makes sense.
Exactly. So, you really think about where it makes sense to do it, but also sit down and have a really honest discussion with yourself about, how much money can you really afford to spend on Google, Facebook, Bing, Pinterest, blah, 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 ads. What's your budget?
Right.
Is it $300? Is it $500? Is it $1,000? You're putting all this time, effort, and energy into a summit. Chances are you're spending $3,000 to $5,000 already on it. I mean, my general feeling is the more you can do to leverage that summit and get people on there when it's fresh and new and hot, the better. So, I mean, that's why you promote like crazy, but you should also be targeting people with ads like crazy. Even if it's only a few $100s, even if you do it yourself, get people onto your summit. And I'm not talking necessarily Google pay-per-click, because people aren't going to go out and go look for pay-per-click stuff on Google saying, well, what summits can I register for? But, doing the display ads, doing those Facebook ads can yield a pretty high rate of return.
Excellent. All right. So I've got one last question for you. And that is, when are ads most effective? Is it further out from the launch or much closer to the launch?
Somewhere in between. A little bit further out and up to, a few days before. Trying to do it at the very last minute is really tough because a lot of people like me, I budget my time and I'm scheduling 2 and 3 and 4 weeks out right now. So if you're putting something up in front of me that's going to start tomorrow, I'm probably not going to sign up for it because I'm just honestly too busy.
Yeah.
That's why we start promoting a couple of weeks out for summits.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, that makes sense. So wow, that was a ton of information that you just shared with us. Holy crap. I guess from here, I really get the sense that having a combination, starting in the beginning with organic traffic is what I would recommend off the bat for anybody. But there is a point where you can start looking at having that paid traffic. Funny enough, we're at the point in our business where paid is starting to make sense. And it took us a long time to get here. A long time. And it's not because I did everything right or everything wrong, but I definitely, I took my time getting to this point because, I've been able to, and I don't want to say exploit, but I've been able to use organic traffic to my benefit, but we're hitting a point where organic needs some help, right? And so that's where I am, and that makes complete sense. So let's wrap this up, Haley. Haley and I actually have teamed up because Haley has her really great group, and she's trying to support women who are creating this, vision of being a leader in what they do. And I'm really, really glad because Haley and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and we've been talking about this challenge that I'm doing, which is the Level Up List Build Challenge, right? This is a challenge that is going to help you guys with your list building. It's actually called the Level Up List Build Challenge, your perfect solution for getting absolute clarity on your list build. So what's that mean? If you guys have done a list build and it wasn't successful for whatever reason, I'm going to be showing you ways to not make those same mistakes. If you've had a list build and it was pretty successful, but for whatever reason you're worried about doing another one, we're going to talk about that. If you've never done one and you've pretty much got yourself convinced that you don't want to do one because one, it's too much work, too much time, too much, then we're going to talk about that as well, because that's a mindset thing. And we need to get you guys looking at list building in a positive light. I'm a big believer that the energy you put into an event, like a summit or a challenge or any type of list build, is what you get out of it. So I really want to transform your thinking on that. That's going to be launching on December the 9th. And you can actually register. I know it's early, but you can register for it now and grab your spot so you're in. If you head on over to leveluplistbuildchallenge.com, there's a page up there. You guys can put your name and email and get registered. That page is going to look prettier as I get more time to build on it. And there's a Facebook group behind it that you guys can join as well. And we're going to be really trying to take hold of all the problems and the issues or the challenges or the fears or the worries about list building and address all of them in this particular 5-day challenge. So I'm grateful that Haley spent the time with us today. Thank you so much for being the first guest, imparting so much wisdom about Facebook ads. And we're very lucky because we have you on next week as well. So next week,
I am so excited to be on.
Right? So next week we got, you guys, we're going to be diving in a little bit on the experiences that Haley had with her list builds and why she literally took her list, ripped it up, threw it out, and she's starting from scratch, right? And so why are we doing this? Why was list building a struggle for her? How it impacted her business when she actually did one. Was it positive? What kind of revenue did she get from it? We're going to be talking about some really cool questions. You definitely want to check it out. So again, thanks Haley for being here, and we'll see you all really soon.